Chuck Todd is apparently new to this whole politics thing, certainly to elections and how they work and how you determine a frontrunner, as you'll see in this clip.
But I think Iowa and New Hampshire don't mean what Iowa and New Hampshire meant a decade ago. I think moving forward,
Iowa seemed to have an impact on Pete Buttigieg.
Well, did it? Because who's the frontrunner? Right,
the guy whose guy went in delegates.
But is he the front runner? He's certainly not getting the president front runner. And the problem is,
I don't understand how Bernie is considered a front runner. This is a guy that had more people showed up to the polls, highest turnout ever, and his percentage went down that up.
Yeah.
His total number went down that up.
Okay, so I wanna make a few things clear because Chuck Todd has been in this thing for a long time. I don't generally watch MSNBC or CNN, and I haven't really for my life, but I have heard from people I respect over there that he was like this huge up and comer that came in and shook things up. And so there's a lot of respect for Chuck Todd. He makes a lot of money. So you might assume that if he says something, there is literally anything to it at all, and there's not. Is this as bad as a couple of days ago when he referred to the supporters of Bernie Sanders as brown shirts? Perhaps not, but it still bothers me as a person that cares about evidence, and to the extent that the scientific method can be applied to politics, and I tried in my time in political science, I think that we should look to the evidence. So when he looks aghast at the idea, not that Bernie Sanders shouldn't be considered the front runner, he takes that as a given, but that he's not a front runner. He's literally not one of the people who's a front runner in this race. I find that a little bit hard to believe. And so I guess I respond by trying to find, how would we know if a person was a front runner? Well, one way I think is if they win the races we have, and on the popular vote, he won in Iowa. He certainly won in New Hampshire, so that's 2 out of 2. Okay, well those are just 2 states. What about looking forward to what's happening? I mean, I know 538 is saying he's likely to win like 40 plus states out of this whole thing. Okay, but that's perspective. What do people think around the country? Well, if we look to national polls, here's Real Clear Politics. That's the last 5 national polls, and Sanders is winning 4 out of the 5. In some cases with 10 points, 8 points, even the 4 points is perfectly fine. And now the Real Clear Politics polling average that everybody refers to has him an average of 4.4 points. So he's won all of the states that we've had so far. He's leading in the national poll. Those seem like relevant facts. Oh, bear in mind, he's raised by far the most money out of candidates that are actually trying to raise money. That seems pretty significant too. What are you supposed to say at a time like this when one of the most long-standing and well-respected people in cable news, someone that millions of people unfortunately still rely on for their perspective on how things are going, what's actually happening, they will hear that ridiculous set of arguments from someone like Chuck Todd, a person who clearly is animated not just by disinterest in Bernie Sanders and what he stands for, but actively disdains both himself, both Bernie Sanders and his supporters, literally referring to them as Nazis. One other little fact check, because we're gonna have a lot of people in this race for some time. So when Chuck Todd tells you there, from 2016 to 2020, his overall numbers went down, the percent went down. So how do you respond to that? I assume that literally even people who only get their news from MSNBC and so are fed a diet of this immediately must respond with, there were 2 people competing in New Hampshire in 2016. There were more than 10 people competing this time around. There are more candidates splitting the vote, and thus the numbers for any individual candidate will go down. I mean, that's so obvious that I honestly feel crazy and a little bit stupid pointing it out, but I feel like I have to, because we no longer can even have the expectation that our well-paid, well-educated avatars of politics news can acknowledge a simple fact, like when you split up a pie into more slices, each slice is gonna get a little bit smaller. Okay, well that's my attempt to educate Chuck Todd about how this thing is going. We will continue to watch him and see if perhaps he evolves over the course of this primary. For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.